Hi, I'm Coach Landry, and the topic is signs that you're a toxic partner. Now, a lot of people go through relationships, and maybe in a certain moment you do something that's wrong, or maybe you act out, or you treat someone disrespectfully. But remember, we're talking about an overall an overall signs that you're a toxic partner. We're not talking about in one particular situation did something wrong. So if you do one thing that's wrong, like I said in some of my previous segments, that's a mistake. We're looking for patterns here. And if you are doing these things on a normal basis, then you'll know exactly where this is going. I mean, you don't have to look much further than the nightly news to find extreme examples of toxic relationships. We've all seen a good episode of Cops. We've all seen someone yelling, screaming, scratching, whatever. But even on a smaller scale, there's demeaning behaviors that infuse toxicity into partnerships. Worse, many of us commit to them without even realizing it. So beyond physical abuse, some relationships, red flags may be dismissed as common ways to cope. That's a mistake. Esteemed relationships have a lot of pride in them. And there are four, categories to a toxic relationship and behavior. And some of that has to do with like insistent criticism about their character, not about what they're wearing or, their attitude or whatnot, but their character, about who they stand for, who they are, what they believe in. Regular defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. These behaviors are also destructive to relationships. So I kind of call them the four horsemen of the apocalypse kind of way to think about it. So within those categories, there's plenty of subtle habits that can be toxic. According to two relationships, that I looked at when I was doing studies on this while I was in school, there's good news. There's plenty of ways to overcome bad behaviors and make relationships even stronger. The exception being that there's violence. That I think that we can all agree that, that's a license for a therapist or to get out. My recommendation is skip the therapist, get out. So I'm going to start on the six things I think that kind of really lead, and then I'll leave you with the takeaway when I finish these up. So number one, let's go with you never accept blame. Okay. If you find yourself struggling time and time again with different partners, the harsh truth is that the problem may be the common denominator is you. If you're tempted to blame all your relationship woes on your partner, chances are you're overlooking your role in the problem. So, it's vital to accept responsibility. And usually, remember, dramatic people will always never want to accept the blame, because dramatic people, what they do to themselves, they beat themselves up. They don't want to hear it from anybody else. So they don't want to give you your time to criticize them or lecture them for what they've done to you, because they've already done to themselves. And that's what we call a cop-out kind of relationship. It's a person who could really never accept blame, not because they don't actually feel guilty, because they can't stand to hear it because it makes them feel so much worse about who they are. But that's still no excuse. If you're with someone like that, then you need to break up with them. Whatever you need to do, get away from them. And they have to realize they have to get in a position where they can take responsibility. Until they can do that, they don't need to be dating you. So get out. And that doesn't mean, they're always right like they're pompous. I mean, you literally can never accept blame, like period, across the board, because it always must be 50-50. There must have been two people in it, because they simply cannot accept single blame. And let's face it, there are some people that are just, it's all them in certain situations. So let's not dismiss it and say, well, we all have a part to play. Well, look, we all get that. But in the end, what's the source? Who keeps causing it? Is this person dramatic? Is it ongoing? Is it a pattern? If it is, then they're a person that never accepts blame. Number two, you say things you don't mean. Remember, when you say something to somebody, they can't unhear it. It's with them forever. So make sure before you spit that out, you really think about what you're about to say. What I usually like to tell some of my clients is your goal in your head of what you want from your relationship, is this getting you what you're about to say or do, getting you closer or further from your goal? Always think about that before you do anything. It usually will help you go, this is only going to make things worse. I better not say that. I better not do that. Now, don't be the type of person to go, well, oh, never mind, and then do the halfway sentence to people, because that's really going to take people off, because they're already going to know you had something nasty or unpleasant to say, and you've already done the damage by putting the thought in their head. So catch yourself before it even starts. So, because words spoken in anger can't really be taken back, right? And you have to remember, if you say, you're crazy, what's wrong with you? Those lead to invalidating environments. in these cases, the root of the problem, often a rush to reaction. Check the facts of what you're reacting to versus assuming you know what's going on. Healthy assertion skills, instead of resorting to passive aggressiveness, are really important. Passive aggressive people typically never have a chance of being in a healthy relationship until they can tackle being passive aggressive. Okay. So if you have a passive aggressive partner, like I said in one of my past segments, take 2 to 3 conversations to address it. And if it can't, you're in an unhealthy relationship. Time to move on. Remember, healthy couples resolve things in 2 to 3 conversations max, and they let it go and they move on. Unless it's an ultra traumatic experience, you should be able to resolve it in 2 to 3 conversations. If you can't, it's an incompatibility or it's toxic. But either way, if you can't, you have to decide for yourself. You can't punish your partner forever for what they're doing that you don't like. At some point, you make a choice for yourself if it's not working for you. But 2 to 3 conversations doesn't mean within the same hour. 2 to 3 conversations, give it a week, kind of brush through it. Don't walk away from someone you really care about real easy. But at some point, be realistic with yourself. If it's broken, if it's toxic, if it's unhealthy, if it's not working, walk away. If it can be worked out, you'll talk again and you'll find a way to cool down and work it out. If it's not, you won't come back to each other. Number 3, it's my way or the highway. Another common behavior that can wear in relationships is refusing to accept influence from your partner. More than simple stubbornness, there's just, large people out there just have large ideas about it's my way or the highway. Now, I don't mean you're at the store and you want a cheese pizza and they want a pepperoni and you're like, dude, I don't want a pizza if we're getting pepperoni. That's not my way or the highway. That's relationships. That's, humans trying to work out differences. I'm talking something real. Like it's, I need you to, I want to have a woman says, I want to have a baby on this month. And you say, well, I want to talk about it first. And I go, nope, that's when I want a baby. If you don't want that with me, I'm leaving. Now, although that's incompatibility and a personal choice, that's also a sign of you're unworkable with your partner. And we're not, like I said, we're not talking about just situations in this whole thing. We're talking about if they're like this in general, like every subject you run into, it's my way or the highway. Okay. Every one of these things can have an exception to a rule in just 1 or 2 situations, but it can't be something they're doing all the time. So if you're in the it's my way or the highway kind of thing, there are sterner people out there by personality traits that are out there that do kind of work like that on a general basis. But usually through dating, you're supposed to figure these things out. These aren't things you're supposed to run into a year or 2 later. You're supposed to know some of these things. So if your partner is kind of like that, then I'll assume you either accepted it or now you have a problem with it. Number 4, you're dependent on the relationship. Contributing toxicity to a relationship isn't just about how you treat your partner, but also how you treat yourself. You rely on the relationship to feel good. That's a sign something underlying needs to be addressed. You shouldn't rely on somebody to be happy in life. Happiness is a choice. Okay? I'm going to repeat this because this is a good thing a lot of people need to hear. Happiness is a choice. Okay? If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, then look at it different. If you can't do either one of those, get out of the relationship. Okay? Because nobody wants to walk around with tension and drama for hours, weeks, months at a time. Okay? So if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, start to look at it differently. Okay? Number 5, you deliberately punish your partner. This is a real regular one of passive aggressiveness a lot of the times. And, I caution this because sure, you might feel like you're just trying to send a message, but there's a better way to express your frustrations, right? A lot of times, because small transgressions are a sign of manipulation. So passive aggressive people by default are manipulators. Take, for example, the milk your partner can't seem to remember from the store, right? Rather than pouting, I suggest to, at dinner, maybe make a return trip to the store, because scolding and yelling and punishing are just rarely effective with children. So why would they work in a relationship, right? So it's one of those things where it's kind of like, if you have a pet peeve that your partner can't do something, like you need to just say, you know what? I need to take that over. I'm obviously not going to leave the relationship over that you can't remember milk every time you go to the store, but I'm just going to switch the role here and I'm going to do it now. Because I want to be with you, but I don't want to punish you and scold you and have that feeling in me to want to do stuff like that. First of all, that's harmful to your relationship. by default. I think that's pretty obvious. And number two, you're demeaning your partner, and you're sucking the respect out of your relationship when you do that. Okay. Number six, you harmlessly slap, push, get in people's face during arguments. You're confrontational. You can't simply just use your words. Okay. In the 2010 study, Centers for Disease and Control Prevention defined physical violence as slapping, pushing, shoving, or getting in within a 1-inch proximity of your partner's face to have a physical altercation. So under those parameters, more than 5 million men reported being victimized by their partner in the previous year. So that goes to show that's up almost 40%. So it's going to show that men are starting to report these things. Men are no longer living under a shadow of that they should feel the need to be a man and be strong anymore. They now say, no, you're crazy. It's not about me not being strong. You're nuts. And obviously with women, it's just as high. So in other words, keep your hands off people. Like everybody learned this in kindergarten. Keep your hands off people. Like, I mean, it's not really hard. How come if you don't have this asset as an adult, don't be dating, period. Okay, I'm gonna repeat that. If you can't keep your hands off another person when you're upset, don't be dating, period. Because with such a thin line between a kind of slapping, shoving, grabbing their arm that doesn't leave a mark or something much more, it simply is unacceptable. There's no reason to have a physical response to a verbal problem. Okay? No reason to have a physical response to a verbal problem. Because harmless slapping or harmless pushing, harmless arm grabbing is symptomatic of an inability to appropriately express your feelings. That's all it is. Just means you don't know how for it to come right out of your mouth. You can only, at some point it goes to physical no matter what you do, which means it's likely best to step back from your relationship and seek help from a professional counselor. But remember, during this process, your partner may leave you. Because when a partner goes through a certain amount of traumatic events with you, eventually they're going to put those in a box. Remember when I was talking about boxes, one of my previous segments, how women and men think differently? Women will think about everything all the time. Oh, you hit me. You'll probably hit me again. A man one time will probably put it in a file, put it away and say, I'm going to let that slide. You shouldn't, by the way, men, if you're listening. Put that in a box and feel like, well, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. But if it happens again, a man's going to start realizing I have more than one file in that box. So the takeaway is, in existence of these behaviors, the first key is accepting that there's a problem. Okay? Because it gives a relationship a better chance of success whenever you realize there's a problem, and gives you a better set of coping skills going forward. Because what I've seen just over the course of knowing people, working with clients, having my own relationships, obviously, what I've seen is that most people don't realize their behavior is harmful. Once they understand the impact it has on their relationship, they usually do desire to make a change, right? But you got to give people a chance. And we're not talking about physical. We're just talking about the other toxics and events like that. The other 5 main keys, right? These are all workable things. Every one of these, like I said, is workable. But the one thing you have to say to yourself at the end of the day, are we compatible? Am I in a healthy relationship? If you have one no out of those 2, that means 50% of your relationship is already broken. And you either need to say, I can recover that 50% or I can't. Now, if both of those things are wrong, if both of those things just don't come together well, you're in an unhealthy relationship. You just need to leave and stop thinking that you are. Okay? So I hope this information was helpful to you. And if you'd like to book a personal session, contact me via the email below. And if you found this information helpful, show your appreciation by clicking on the PayPal donation link below. And I will talk to you soon.